This is part two of a rigging series showing you how to add a skeleton and a control rig to a character in Unreal Engine 5.5. In the first part, we went through how to add a skeleton to a mesh, creating a skeletal mesh that can make a character move. And remember, this is the character that we were working on, Dave the skeleton. We, in this second part, are going to add a control rig layer to this. So that's a series of controls that allow you to be able to puppeteer your character and animate it in your world. Now, having worked in CG for the last 20 years at places like ILM and Digital Domain, I've seen these kinds of tools only really exist in those studios. Modular rigging and procedural rigging is something which can save you a ton of time in setting up your characters, but it was traditionally only in those studios you could do things like that. The tools that Epic have created here are in their second version, they're really, really advanced for where they're at. Being able to drag and drop modular components on top of a skeleton is extraordinary in terms of the time saving and the skill saving that you need to be able to make a character move. So by the end of this tutorial, you should be able to add a control rig to your skeleton without having to build it from scratch. As long as you've done everything right, you should be able to get to this point where you have your character being able to move. And this is something which is now achievable by just about anybody. It's again a more intermediate level tutorial, and it builds on top of part one. So let's jump in and find out how to make modular control rigs. Okay, so in the last tutorial, we took a mesh, added a skeleton to it, and then bound the skeleton to the mesh for two different situations. One is you've got a mesh or which doesn't have a skeleton in it, and you want to build a skeleton, or you downloaded a model that has a skeleton. It just doesn't work. Unreal doesn't like it, or it's not the right orientation for retargeting or whatever it is. You want to take that skeleton out, rebuild it. That last tutorial should take you fully through that process. We're now going to take this and add a modular control rig to this character so that we can better animate it and handle it in Engine. And again, we're creating something for this little animation I've got here. Not going to go through the animation just yet, but this little piece here was made with our skeleton character. Go back to the first one if you want to find out where to get the Dark Ruins project. That's a free download from the Megascans department of Fab. The skeleton is also from Fab. So that's where we're going. First off, as I said, we want to create our control rig. So there's some brand new and updated tools in this version of Unreal that allow us to do create modular rigs. What I want to do is come over here to my skeletal mesh asset. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go to create and modular rig. Now, modular rig, different to a control rig, is going to allow you to drop these rig modules onto your skeleton. As long as it's been made well, this should work. Can be a bit finicky. That's where the naming comes in, super important. Control rig is going to require you to build every single control, every constraint, every bit of that rig from scratch. The modular rig is a shortcut. If you haven't done everything properly, or if it has any bugs, it might be more difficult. But building a control rig is not for the faint of heart. It takes quite a lot to create that. So the modular rig concept allows you to be able to do this much more easily. So I've gone for the modular rig option there. I'm going to double click on that, and that's going to open up my Modular Rig Editor. And here we see Dave, our character from the last section, with the skeleton, but now also with this control here, this root control, and this funny little circle in the middle there around the pelvis. And this is because of the way we've named things in this skeleton, assuming that it knows how we want to do this next part, which is to take all of these bits of rig here and strap them into our skeleton here so that we can then puppeteer this character, Dave. And animating the skeleton on its own is not the way you want to do it. It's how the way people used to do it way back before IK was created. But this way will show you how to make an IK control rig that's much, much more friendly to animate with and work with than just animating the skeleton directly. Okay, so if you hover over this socket here, it tells you there's spine 01 socket, and it says drag and drop the spine module here. It's so like intuitive the way this works, I think. So long as it's working, we will grab the spine module and do exactly what it told us to do. And there you can see it's given us all of those controls up the spine there, so we can control the spine and the root joint, the pelvis joint. So there's already a lot in here that would allow us to animate. But we're going to go in and add the arms, the legs, and the neck and the head. Okay, so first off, I'm going to do the neck. And if we come over here, we've got a neck module. So I'm just going to drag that one over there, and that worked nicely. And there we've got our neck and the head. So we should be able to select the bits there and now move those with the controls, which is awesome. Just test it as we go a little bit. I'm going to go for the other sockets now. I'm going to go for the arms. So I'm going to go grab my arm module, drop that one on. As you can see, that worked. And the other arm module, boom. Now, for the inexperienced, you might not notice, but what it's added is these little pole vector controls, which basically control where the elbow's pointing. But as you can see, they're pinging backwards off the shoulders, which is not what we want. So the quick fix for that is just to go grab that first one there. And we can even rename these if we want to, if we're being really tidy, but I'm going to leave that as is for now. I'm going to take that first one, which is the one on the right hand side, and I'm going to come over here to the settings here. And there's a lot of settings, but the one I'm looking for is the elbow bone, and this is set to clavicle. So you can tell that's wrong. This is not an elbow. We're going to reset this to, instead of clavicle R, we're going to say clavicle R. We're going to do lower arm R, which is the elbow. Now you can see it's put that pole vector off the elbow there. So just a couple of fixes to do. We're going to do this other one here. So we're going to grab bottom left, the arm, and go to the elbow bone again. We're going to set this to down here to lower arm. I think I did that wrong. So I set it to lower arm R, and it should be lower arm L. There we go. So now you can see that pole vector is sticking out from the elbow. All right. So we're pretty close here. We've got our arms, and now I'm going to do the legs. So if I go back to the root here, sometimes it can be a little weird. I'm going to hit compile and save. I'm expecting to see these other sockets here, so it can be a little bit buggy sometimes. I am going to just close this for a second and reopen it. That's a good trick. Okay, so now it's back. We can see those sockets for the legs on the hip joints there, or the thigh joints as they are named. I'm going to take the legs, the leg module here. I'm going to drag it over here for my first leg, and then second leg, just dropping them onto those circles where those sockets live. And as you can see, that one worked. This one did not. So leg, not happy. Some reason it didn't like that. So I'm going to undo it. I'm just going to hit compile again and save because I want to keep saving what did work. Again, I'm going to close that down. I'm going to open it up again. And let's just try that one more time. So we'll take the leg and drag it over the thigh socket there. There we go. It worked that time. So a good tip there, if it's not working, switch it off and switch it on again. Good old IT support 101. All right, so now you can see you've got a pretty fully featured rig here. There's a couple of weird bits with the pole vectors on the legs going off into the background there. I will try and do an update to show a fix for that, but for now we'll just leave it in there. You can fix it at the next stage in the animation, but for now I'm just going to leave that, and I'm going to hit compile and save. And now we've got a modular humanoid character, our Dave character here, with a skeleton in and a full modular rig, not including all the toes and fingers, but we do have most of what we need to be able to animate with. So we can test this in here just by grabbing these controls and moving them around. You'll see that our character there is moving pretty well. I can grab the pelvis there and test out that stuff. So it's going pretty well so far. And just bearing in mind that this could have been a mesh you modeled yourself. You've sculpted something, you built something yourself, or downloaded something from. We used to say in our courses at TG Pro that you shouldn't use characters that don't have the skeleton. Now you can do this. It's getting more and more easy to be able to do it, or use characters with bad skeletons, or no, skeletons that don't work in Unreal, I should say. So yeah, we've got a full modular rig pretty much. Now what I can do, if I just come over here for 1 second, I'm just going to go to a place over here just to demonstrate that what I can do is just grab this modular rig, drag it into the environment, and it's going to do a couple things when I let go. It's put the character in the world there, but it's also created a sequencer. And if I come across here, just give me 1 second. It's created a sequencer, and in another tutorial, I'm going to try and get to that one. I will show you how to make this guy move, but we do have this character in the world, so just a quick preview of what that's like. If you hit G, it'll show every single light that's in this scene, so it gets a bit overwhelming. But you can see your controls there. You can now see how you can grab them and move them in the world, and you can see them in the sequencer. And if you want to keyframe them, just hit the keyframe button and move around over time. Add some keyframes. That is animation. It's obviously a lot more complicated than that. It takes a couple of years to get good at it if you focus on it all the time. But now we have the ability to be able to do it. You can at least do previs animation, or if you really want to go for it, get really good at animation. This has also made it easier to do things like mocap and retargeting, which maybe I'll cover in another session sometime. But yeah, so we've gone a really long way through the last two sessions. We've shown how to add a skeleton to a character, take a skeleton out, make a new one, create a control rig from scratch, and end up with a fully animatable character. So I think the only other thing that I wanted to mention in this part was to say that now we've got our character. We can test it out. We can try moving it. You might see that on the pelvis there that it's doing some pretty interesting stuff. Just as a quick highlight, the way to fix that, and maybe I'll do this properly in another video as well. If we come back to our skeletal mesh here, and we go to this edit weights section. Now you remember when we did the bind skin back in the skeleton tutorial? What it created is basically a set of maps for how the joint manipulates the mesh. And we can go in here and we can fix it now. So with this brush mode on the left there, we can pick the joints that we're interested in fixing. Let's say the, which one? Clavicle. We don't want the clavicle to mess with the rib cage. There's a good example. So I can select the clavicle joint. I can go over here to multiply or replace. I can say multiply by 0, strength 0. And now I can paint on the mesh 0 influence for that joint. So basically I'm cleaning out the influence of the clavicle on all of these other bits of the mesh. There's another way you can do this. There's a lot of mesh here, so it's a little bit slow with this one. It'll probably speed up in future versions, but if I select all of these bits, let's just do that a bit of a better job of doing that. If I select all these bits like that, then I go to the left here and I hit flood, that's going to flood the selection. Make sure I've got all of that selected. I can then do replace down here, replace it with 0, and then if I click away from it, you should see that all of that influence has gone from the clavicle. So there's various ways that you can basically clean this up. It's a big, long process, a bit like UVing or whatever. But I can maybe spend a bit more time on that another time. With this, I really just wanted to show the modular control rig as an addition to the skeletal mesh editing tools that I covered last time. And then next time, maybe I will do animation. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And let me know what things you'd like to hear about, what things you'd like to learn in Unreal Engine. I've about 20 years of working in CG professionally and in all kinds of different studios. So I'm happy to make content here, and just let me know what you're interested in learning more about. Hope you all have a great day. Look forward to seeing what you make. Please feel free to share it. I'd love to see what you create. Take care.